Welcome back to another episode of the Tease podcast. This week, we're bringing you an update on the American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney campaign. We'll also be talking about a viral meal that McDonald's let out that caused all sorts of commotion and sharing some trends that we've been noticing in the influencer and celebrity space about how to be more authentic to really grow your brand and generate sales. I'm excited today because we have a very, very special guest. Instead of Michelle, who is out on vacation, I'm bringing in the co-founder of my company. I know I always say I'm the co-founder of Millennial Marketer. Well, this is the other half, Brandon. What are you drinking today to chat with us on the podcast?
Okay. I'm excited to be here. I have the vintage cola Olipop. I'm part of the Olipop gang now, and I've been waiting for this moment. I've had it out. I got it out of the fridge about 10 minutes ago, and I waited to crack it until we were on the podcast. So cheers.
Cheers. We got some good ASMR. Like we got the sound
Mm-hmm.
right in the mic, so that was perfect.
That was a great one.
Today I'm drinking, this is my favorite podcast coffee cup. I don't think you've ever seen it, Brandon. I call it my teeny tiny coffee cup. I've got a long shot of decaf espresso because it's 2:30 and I don't want to be up all night. But I'm trying to be better about caffeine,
Yeah. Well, it looks great.
which
Yeah,
is,
I don't know. I don't know if there's any caffeine in here. You know, I don't do well with caffeine.
I don't know if there's caffeine in Olipop. Is there?
It's gluten free. I think that it's either Olipop or what's the other brand that's very similar to Olipop?
There's Culture Pop, Poppy.
Yeah, I know that Poppy, I think one of the flavors has like a few milligrams of caffeine in it. But I quit caffeine about 2 years ago, and that was like a big jump for me because I used to drink a lot of coffee. And I just like got to this point where, like you said, where like in the afternoon, I just felt like, okay, I'm gonna be up all night. And I just got so much like unneeded. I feel like the energy went to good places when I drank it and had like work to do, but then it went to like, just being, jittery and anxious and, having too much energy in the afternoon. And so I quit cold turkey, a part of 75 Hard, that challenge that I did. And then I never went back. I had a sip of coffee after 75 days of no coffee, and there was no place for it. So I just decided to continue on my non-caffeine journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, both my husband and I, like, we started trying to stop drinking caffeine earlier than we used to. And one night, Dan had a really long, like, volleyball match. We got home late and he was like, I'm going to have a soda before bed. It's fine. I'm so tired. He was up at 2:30 in the morning. Like, he woke up at
That's
2:30 and never went back to bed.
that's what it does to you. So yeah, I'd have had no caffeine and I've had full energy, full days. I don't rely on it anymore. And you know me, I can go all day long.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to chat about on today's show is something I know you don't frequent very often. Michelle wouldn't frequent either. She wouldn't know. But I want to
Uh-huh.
talk about McDonald's because
Okay.
this week they were in the news because they had a special meal. There was this like Grinch special meal. It was an adult Happy Meal. You get a Big Mac or uh, chicken nuggets. And then they had this like dill seasoning for the fries that you could like shake. And it came with like funny Grinch socks. And it was all over social media because it sold out in days. So they had this offer, it sold out in days. People would try to go get it and they'd be at McDonald's angry. So that's like one side of it. And on the other side, there were people getting it and like angry. So they would like get it for their kids and they'd be mad that the socks were adult sized socks, even though it was an adult Happy Meal. Or they'd be like, this is disgusting. These like dill pickle fries are gross. So like it really caused a stir. And I don't even think you can get it anymore. But what's really fascinating about the whole thing is like the McDonald's team is talking about how this was one of their biggest launches. Like they made bank and people kind of hated it at the same time.
So it was successful, like outside of all of the, sides that people were on, they actually, saw like sales increase and everything they were looking for happen.
Yep, they got sales, they got attention, even though people were online hating about it, which is like so fascinating. I think in like social media in the world, like sometimes backlash can actually make you money.
Yeah, backlash can make you money. I think that okay, so I have a question now. So do you think that backlash makes more money, or do you think that partnerships between two companies make more money?
Oh,
Because I always see the collabs, and the collabs always do really well. So if there's a side of things where collabs will get the attention that you need, is backlash substituting on the other side for that same attention?
that's so interesting. Well, you know what? This was kind of both, right? Because it was like a Grinch intellectual property and McDonald's collab, and it caused social media conversation. Like, I don't know if I think both help. I don't know which one trumps the other, but I think anything that can create social conversation, I think ideally that social conversation is positive, right? Where people are talking positively about the brand, but McDonald's kind of like banks on this all of the time of like creating these stirs that are limited time only to get people talking. And I think for a brand like McDonald's, if something's bad, it's not going to hurt it forever. Like I don't think like a small local coffee shop should try to make something that people are going to think is bad and complain about. That would probably be a bad move. But McDonald's being this like major corporation, if something is kind of like people don't like it, it can help more people talk about it because people love to go buy things and make those like, oh, this is horrible face on social media because it gets them views, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that one thing that makes that really interesting is that McDonald's does one thing or like a few things really, really well. And so I think that when they say they're doing something like, you know, the Grinch or the McRib or something that's just so out of the ordinary, it's that curiosity factor where it's like, wait, I associate McDonald's with these very few things they do really well, and they're taking a chance in trying to switch it up, and that's where people's opinions come into play. It could either be really good or really bad, but I think that, why those launches do so well is because they do what they do really well, and then they collab with someone else or they collab on something different, and you wanna see if it does well or if it doesn't, and if it doesn't do well, you wanna be the first one to say, "They didn't do it the way that they thought they were," and if it does do well, then you're like, "Oh, I knew that was gonna happen."
Yeah, and I saw that this was happening and I was like, "Oh geez, this is gonna sell out." My daughter's a big Grinch fan, and so I was like, "I've gotta get her these socks." You know what I mean? Like, I was like, "I've gotta
Yeah.
get the socks for her." So, we got one of the meals, and so I like dill pickle, and, like, I thought the fries were actually really good, and May loved the fries too, and so when I went back to try to get her just the fries, not like the whole meal and the socks, and they were just, like, out. And I talked to one of the people and they were like, "Yeah, they only gave us enough for like we had it for 4 days and it was gone." And people are like livid. Like people are really angry about it. And it's just so fascinating like when you think about what scarcity does, because even if it's not something that desirable, scarcity can take something like French fries with some dill pickle seasoning really are not that exciting. Like, let's like be really honest about this, but it can take something like that that costs pennies to make, that is not that like special, and turn it into something special.
That's really interesting. I think that on a similar note, one thing that we have talked about a lot with our clients is, in our business, we sell digital products and people who are doing something like a service, trading their time for money one to one and really helping a group of individuals. They are very good because they can say, I'm going to give you my time, and people see the value of that time. Then when they switch to digital products, they're, selling something that's a little less tangible. And so their first instinct is, oh, if it doesn't sell, I'm going to just add my time to it. Meaning, maybe I can just add like coaching, or they can get more access to me, or get my phone number or a group chat that I'm in, and get direct access to me. And it's really interesting how people value different things as they go up the chain. And one thing that we always recommend to them is like, don't give your time away too soon. because all of this stuff is about perceived value. That's what marketing is, and that's what they're doing here. The perceived value of something that has, very few of that item or scarcity related to it is how they increase the value of it. When people get there and they're all out and they're sold out, they're like, wait, the value of that just went up exponentially. And so I think that that's kind of funny that you say that, because we actually, whether we know it or not, recommend our clients do the same thing, where we tell them, like, wait to give away your time until there's a really high perceived value of your time. And then when someone's like, whether it's scarcity or just perceived value or things that people want, meaning access to them, wait until it's at the highest perceived value to give it away. And then when people take that time or when they get access to that thing, it feels so much more valuable, which maybe I'm comparing our clients' time to socks in this case, but the fact that McDonald's did that, they increased
Yeah.
the perceived value of something
Socks.
so much that it was a pair of socks. And then we have people that are giving away their time, 1-to-1 hours of it is really funny. It's all about perceived value.
Yeah, and one way I think that you can do that for your people if you have a digital product or membership is start to offer one to many. We're doing that Thursday in our 10-day challenge where we're doing a live session. It's a free group of people, but we're not giving it away one-to-one, right? It's one to as many people want to show up to hear Brandon talk about our business and how we're growing and what we're going to do to change how we make money and how we deliver our services. When you go one to many, people then start to realize that that one-to-one time is super valuable, right? Because they see you talking to a group of people, providing that insight, and then think, oh, I'd love to pick his ear on a strategy session or get him to look at my sales page or get him to look at my funnel to provide the insight that I need to grow. So you can kind of start to sample what that one-on-one would look like in still like live engaging ways. Because I think one step I think people sometimes miss in their funnel is they want someone to go from like a stale download to a $27 course to a $10,000 mastermind. But then they just don't quite see the value of that mastermind. But when you can start giving your time away in some one-to-many scenarios, either low cost or free, then people will really see the value of that mastermind, assuming you're good at what you do, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff's really interesting. I think perceived value is a really interesting topic. And, one thing that about me is that, we're in, so before I dive down that path, we're in a really interesting time for this. Like, we are so lucky to be born when we were and be alive in this digital age where you can increase the perceived value of something like your knowledge or your time, which is really interesting. One thing that you know about me is both my parents are chiropractors, and they have worked together for the last 35 years. Every single day in the morning when I was young, I would see them get up and go to work together. They would drive in the same car down to the office. They work together, live together, everything. And, they would see patients all day long, every 30 minutes, all day long. And they went to medical school. They did 9 years of schooling. They did all of these different things. They have continuing education they have to do every single year. They have all these certifications that come along with, what they practice. And it's just really interesting because my parents always look at what we do and they're like, if I was just, you know, 30 years younger, if I was born, just a little bit later, I could totally see how you could increase the value of your knowledge and distribute it in different ways where it's more valuable to just not the person who comes in for that adjustment, but to many people at once. And that's kind of what we've created here is taking advantage of the perceived value of knowledge and other things and packaging it in a way where we can reach more people, even especially online, right? And it's so interesting because, I look at my parents and they look at what we do and they're so jealous. Like, they're like, I saw 10 patients today And, they paid the same amount for every single visit. And, I just did them back to back to back and worked all day long. And they help. I mean, these are life-changing adjustments. Like, they've been working with, some of these patients have been seeing them for 20 plus years, like multiple generations. The people they took care of, now have kids, and sometimes even they have kids. So it's 3 generations of people, which is really interesting. But the value of that time for, the value they're giving to that patient every single day, they pour their heart out and they really, really, give everything they can, and it makes a difference. However, it's really interesting because if you think about how to package, whether it's knowledge or value or, these different ways that you can help people, now we're in a situation where, like, tomorrow we're going to be helping tons of people at once with the same 30 minutes,
Yeah.
right? It's the same 30 minutes my parents have, but yet we're packaging it in a way where that value can be helpful to a group of people at the same time. So I think that was a great topic, like whether it's McDonald's or anyone, it's really cool how they're taking something and increasing the value of it substantially and being able to hit the masses. And it's really interesting.
To do that. And if you're always only thinking about one appointment to $100, one appointment to
Yeah.
$100, you're never going to get beyond any sort of income ability if you can't
Mhm.
figure out how to scale beyond that hour, right? And that's what you and I do all day, is talk to people about how to do that and how to go beyond that. And part of that's about being creative. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to just be forward thinking. Like, I remember when I started at the Princeton Review. This was in like 2012, 2013. We had an asynchronous online SAT and ACT course that was, like, hidden on the website for sale. It was something they just gave to everybody if they bought tutoring, right? And it was, like, hidden, and I just remember being in meetings and being like, "Guys, like, we should be selling this." Because every tutoring student that comes in, we have to find a tutor, pay that tutor, bring them in. Every course student that comes in, we've got to pay rent, do this, do that to get people in the door. If we start selling this online course, it's sold, it's done. There's, like, nothing else to do. Yeah, you might have a customer service problem or someone saying, "I can't get in," or, "I forgot my password," but that's, like, minimal compared to the work of providing the other services. And I just remember everyone thought I was absolutely crazy. Like, I was like, "Guys, this is what we should be doing. This is what we should be doing." And then in 2020 during COVID, so much changed. Like, people think about education and educational classes differently post-COVID than they did pre-COVID.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And the fact that, you did that so early what was is just so funny now because
Yeah.
it's like you always saw that value in it, and some people don't, and they try to prioritize time or different elements and say, no, we can't give the same amount of value, or we can't do this. And you're like, no, this is going to keep the lights on, whether you sell this package or if someone, purchases this
Yeah.
product online, which is, yeah, that's so cool to see. And now, transitioning this all, I feel like we're in the right place at the right time. And you and I have both, we met at the perfect time for this too. And we're seeing a lot of changes in, the space. And the other thing, the topic of, like, AI, for example, nowadays, people are relying too much on these things that don't create value and really help people. They're actually switching to a different model. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I wanna switch gears a little bit and report back on a story that, Brandon, you missed. We've talked about this story on Tease before, but did you ever catch wind of the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad controversy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was an ad, the tagline was "Sydney Sweeney has great genes," and people were very upset because they felt like there were, like, racist undertones to the ad. There was lots of backlash. But there's been some really interesting updates about this campaign this week that I just find completely fascinating. The first is Sydney Sweeney. actually kind of apologized this week. So
Oh,
she had
wow.
been silent about it. There was one interview where she was like, I don't even pay attention to that stuff. But then Sydney Sweeney's not been doing so well. She had a movie completely flop in the box office, and I think this was backlash from this experience. So she recently made a statement that said she was really surprised by the reaction and confirmed that she does not hold the values that that ad made people think she held. So she actually spoke out about it, which I think is really interesting because I think that just shows the backlash of what happened really hurt her. The other really interesting thing is American Eagle has a new spokesperson. You are never going to guess who it is, Brandon.
Who is it?
It is Martha Stewart. Like, if you could go opposite of Sydney Sweeney, is Martha Stewart. And what's also really interesting about this choice is the execs at American Eagle, they said they're doing this because apparently Martha Stewart is really popular with Gen Z. And I guess she like has a TikTok and Gen Z people are following her and that they're into it. And they were like, you know what? Like Martha Stewart is someone who won't upset the grandmas and that Gen Z likes. So that's why they went with Martha Stewart. But what's also interesting is Martha Stewart is known for being pretty like anti-Trump. So like they did a campaign that got a lot of the MAGA people actually excited and saying, now I'm going to shop there, which is like wild. But then went with this like anti-Trump figure who's been very public about how she feels about her politics. And it just kind of shows me as like an outsider that that campaign did not bode well for American Eagle or Sydney Sweeney.
That's really interesting, and it is funny because 'cause I've seen, talk about a rebrand. Martha Stewart really rebranded, and she is super popular. I've seen a lot of the stuff with her and Snoop Dogg specifically have gotten her, like, this exposure from these audiences that I watched a little bit of um, her movie on Netflix, and the way her life started versus, what she's doing now is very, very different, which is really interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that the stuff, and Snoop Dogg is very similar too. They're both like really agile. They both are super, flexible. They rebrand constantly. I mean, the thing that's really cool about both of them is actually how old they are and how relevant they are,
Yeah.
which is crazy. I mean, these people have stayed. There are plenty of people, from their generation that aren't relevant even remotely, compared to them. And it's because of the rebrand of how they're just adapting over time. And I think this is probably, on Martha Stewart's side, in, one of those like, I can take anything, rebrand it, and, come out on top. And so that's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and these people who like one thing we talk about on this podcast a lot is the power of a personal brand. Like when you have a following, when you have a connection with people, that can really translate to anything. So if people follow you and are connected with you, you can change what you're selling, change what you're doing, and they'll stay connected to you. But the other thing too is sometimes you lose that following or times change or things are different. So both
Mhm.
of these figures being able to like jump and rebrand, some people just disappear, right? Like they disappear into the oblivion, but they found ways to stay relevant by doing new and different things. Not to go back to like the McDonald's at the beginning, but that's what the Grinch meal does, right? It makes people like who probably haven't been to McDonald's in 10 years think, oh, maybe I should go because they have this thing. And when you can like rebrand and do things exciting and do things that are surprising, you can keep people's attention.
And one thing that's really important to note there too is that for Sydney Sweeney, if she doesn't recover from this, that would be considered a huge missed opportunity. And so there are some people that recover from whatever it is. I mean, Martha Stewart's, hasn't had a perfect life. She's had plenty of challenges in her life where she's recovered from all of them, rebranded, and most likely used those challenging moments to help her gain momentum for the direction that she's going, which is really interesting. So it's cool to see, all of this stuff is marketing, whether people know it or not. Like this is, people that are facing challenges in their lives, for example, or they made decisions that really affected their career or their personal life, whatever it is. And there's two options, right? There's, sulk in it and get hit by it and, come to a complete halt, or, use it as fuel. It's like 8 Mile, with Eminem, right? Like you can't attack someone or put them down or, stunt their momentum if they've embraced the challenges that they've faced along the way and are using them as fuel to continue forward.
Yeah, exactly. And when I talk to business owners all of the time, you talk to business owners all of the time, something I see a lot is people will try something once. It won't go well and they give up. Right? Like and then they stop. But the thing is the people who are successful keep going. Martha Stewart was in jail.
Yeah. You, yeah,
I
you
mean,
can't.
face of an American Eagle campaign. Like, who would have thought that was going to happen? And I think that there's a resilience that you need to have. If you're trying something on social media and it doesn't work the first, second, or third time, you kind of have to keep going. And then if it doesn't work after 3 months, then maybe you pivot and try something new. If you're selling a particular offer, same thing. If you've only pitched it to 10 people and get 10 no's, that's like actually not enough. Like, you have
Yeah.
to keep talking about it, keep pitching it, and trying to sell it.
I know that a lot of people know the statistics around small businesses, but that's a great example of, when people are too scared to start, they're not thinking about the fact that the idea they have now is not the idea that, helps them reach their goals or, helps them find the success that they're looking for. And we've found that too. I mean, that's part of business is pivoting, it's adapting, it's rebranding, it's, learning from the challenges that you face in adapting. I mean, you're going to come out either with, something similar or a completely different way of doing things based on, you know, what, what you're dealing with. And I think that a lot of people, whether it's people just starting a business or clients that we talk to, they're so afraid of starting because they're like, what if it flops? Or what if what I put out there people don't resonate with? Or what if the thing that I go all in on isn't what my audience wants to see? And there should be a book or something, maybe there is, about, you know, like learning based on, it's called trial and error, but like learning based on just doing everything wrong. Like, I think
Yeah.
that could be an interesting topic because it's like, why don't you just learn by doing everything wrong as opposed to, thinking that you're going to get everything right away. And so
Yeah.
that's like, that's something that people need to, whether anything, whether it's a business or a new passion or a new pursuit in your life, it takes grit and it takes, getting momentum, and the momentum early on isn't going to be the same momentum as what carries you through the finish line.
Yeah. I think too many business owners think too much of like a 1-to-1 when it comes to ROI, whether it's their time or money. But they're like, say I spend 10 hours on this thing, I want to see 10 hours of return on that thing. Or if I spend $1,000 on that thing, I want it to make me $3,000. And I'm not saying you can never think like that, but I always think of it more as a whole. Like, your business is almost more of like a mutual fund than a single stock, because you're
Yeah.
going to try something and it's going to like pay off 20-fold. You're going to try something else and you might lose money. And that's okay as long as there's like a net positive in the end. Because what you learn while doing this thing, you're going to apply to the other thing. And what you've might have lost there, you've gained there. And when you think too rigidly of like, okay, if I'm going to build a digital product, it's going to cost me $10,000 or whatever. Say like that's what you figured out. Well, I have to make back that $10,000 in the first year. Well, like hopefully you do. That would be great. But if you didn't, one, you have that product forever. Two, you've learned a lot along the way. Three, you can probably raise your one-on-one prices because now you have a lower cost offer. So it's like the whole picture I think you have to think about versus this like 1-to-1 ROI.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think that it's important for things, whether it's business or things like creating habits, like creating new
Yeah.
habits too. Like everyone thinks that the result is going to happen the first day you start something. And, in actuality, like, the book Micro Atomic Habits, talks about a similar concept where things compound over time. And to your point, about money, for example, it's like compound interest, right? 1% every day better turns out to be a certain percentage each year. And that's not just a one-to-one ROI. In the end, you're getting, I forgot what the exact number is, but you're getting an insanely higher ROI on that same amount of time that you put into it. So I think it could be applied to anything. I think that marketing also um, is really interesting because it's built on human psychology. Like none of this stuff is being created out of the blue. It's taking people's psychology, their intent, how they make decisions, the challenges they face, the pain points they take, and it's just giving a simpler approach and giving it back to them, saying, "Hey, here's your psychology about this specific element. Here's a way that we can solve that or help you, whatever it is." That's all marketing is.
Yeah. That's and when you break it down that simply, I think it helps people understand it. I think a lot of times we way overcomplicate it. And
Yeah.
there's definitely like when you look at the big $20 million campaigns that big corporations do, there's going to be a lot of testing and a lot of things going into that campaign. But if you actually just start if you're working on social media or a sales page, just really start to talk to that person and think about how you would chat with them in a one-on-one situation, right? Like, what would you say to someone about your product? What would you say to someone about the problem and how you solve it? It's really not that complicated, especially to get started. Now, when you're talking about optimizing a funnel or that's like a whole different thing. But like getting the initial sale, getting the initial flow is really about connecting with people and helping them solve a problem and leaning on that psychology. And you're a human. Like you are a person who's had a problem and had it solved. And like what would you want to hear that would do that for you?
So do you think that Martha Stewart is going to lead American Eagle? What direction?
Back from the dead. I think it's really interesting. I think she can. I think that there are some people who have like boycotted American Eagle and probably aren't going back unless they issue some sort of apology because the campaign was I don't know, it was a little tasteless. Like let's be honest. But
But it just kinda got phased out too. I never really I mean, I didn't track it afterwards, but I don't think there was any it kinda just fizzled out
yeah,
and left people feeling the way they felt when it happened.
yeah. I think they're hoping people just forget about it with Martha Stewart.
Okay, so here's my question now. Do you think that Sydney Sweeney lost an opportunity to rebuild herself, rebrand, and come back from that? Or do you think that, Martha Stewart's going to give them a higher return than Sydney Sweeney could ever do if she even, took that time to rebrand?
I I think that regardless of American Eagle, I think Sydney Sweeney has lost an opportunity to rebrand. I think she didn't respond fast enough. I think that she like, it's like 6 how many months later? 6 months later, she's like, "Yeah, I'm not racist." But she also didn't say, "Yeah, I'm not racist." She said, "Yeah, I don't hold the values people think I hold based on that ad." So she also was very, like, she didn't give, like, a clear enough answer, so I think that she's lost an opportunity to rebrand. Nothing she's really done since has been successful. She's also now dating, like, Scooter Braun, which you should know about Scooter Braun because you have a Swiftie girlfriend. But, like, that's, like, a whole nother thing. I feel like she's aligned herself a little bit with, like, the bad guys and hasn't done enough to realign with the good guys. And then now that she's sort of apologized, she's probably not a fan of this, the other people. So, like, I don't know. It's, like, a real weird situation. I think Martha Stewart will kind of have a neutral effect on American Eagle. So I think some people will probably come back, um, I don't think it'll like bring some people who are mad at them way back, but I think it'll have a neutral effect, especially going into the holidays. Like with a holiday campaign, it is a lot of older people buying for younger folks, right? Like what does a grandma or an older mom go and buy their nieces, nephews? Like a hoodie from American Eagle is like a pretty safe gift, and also I think with like a safe representative. So I think if like either of those people want like a resurgence, they're going to have to do more, to be honest, because I think the backlash of what happened was pretty negative. And there was shown to be like a pretty like all the stocks rose during that ad, but then everything immediately dropped.
I think that I don't know, and maybe this is I guess my question is, do you think that or like I guess I'm ready for the celebrity endorsement era to be over.
Yeah,
Like what it's like when is this gonna end? Like when is, I guess my question is, do you think that, celebrity endorsements will carry weight into the future of marketing? Because we're seeing businesses have to redefine marketing completely. And you're seeing it in, the current events and things that are happening. I just don't think my prediction is that I don't think that celebrity endorsements are going to carry the weight that they used to moving forward. And I think that businesses are going to have to go back to leading based on value again.
yeah,
And, I think that there was a lot of stuff about, like company culture was a huge thing for so long, right? Apple and, Facebook and all of these places that said, hey, this is the best company to work for. Like company culture was like the biggest thing at one point in time. I just think that there's going to have to be something new leading us moving forward. You can't just say, oh, I care more than you do. And then, hire someone that says, we care more than you do. There's got to be something that's coming that is just value based. Like, I
yeah.
think that there might be a bubble that needs to pop where people go, oh, a lot of the stuff I was seeing on social media wasn't what it seemed like. And, maybe there's going to be a group of businesses or even a category of businesses that stay for the long haul. And that, I hope the celebrity endorsement era ends soon because I think we're going to have to be a little bit more strategic in
Yeah.
growing businesses and providing value.
Yeah, and people are savvy, right? I think like in the social media era and where everyone's talking on the internet, like people are super savvy. They know these people are getting paid. Martha
Yeah.
Stewart might not actually wear American Eagle jeans, like who knows? And so I think those recommendations carry less weight but can get attention. But like does that actually move to purchases, right? Does that attention get people to buy or is it just noise? And I think one of the things that I know is happening on social media is like the importance of like the micro influencer. So the person with a 10,000, 20,000 really niche following can have a big impact on recommending a product, even more so than an influencer with a million followers, because people know that influencer with a million followers got the product for free, might be getting paid to promote and all of that. Whereas like the micro influencer with 10, 20,000 followers, this person's still a regular person, right? They're not a millionaire in a mansion. They're a regular person living a regular life who happens to be a content creator, right? And I think that those people are getting more trusted in the space.
And something they did caught the attention of others where it's like, it's back to that like friends recommend
Yeah.
friends thing where something they did caught the attention of someone else. And then someone else goes, oh, I actually feel like I have access to this person. I'm at the same level as this person. So maybe I can do that thing they're doing because that looks really interesting. Sarah's had an incredible effect on people in not only our friend group, our circle, but also, twice removed and people feeling like they're really close to her. And she's a micro influencer as well. And the TikToks that she does are just sharing what we do in our everyday life. And I've seen, we work with a lot of influencers. She has had way more success than a lot of influencers that I know by just only promoting things that she
Yep.
uses. Yeah. The other thing that I was gonna say too was, there's Stephen Bartlett is Diary of a CEO. He's on, I think it's called Shark Den, or it's a spinoff of Shark Tank, and it was really funny because one of the people that went on Shark Tank was doing was doing something similar to like the Theragun, and it was just a athlete recovery type, e-commerce item, and they were pitching it, and Stephen Bartlett goes, you know, I see these all the time, right? I get sent these things every single day. I have a box, I have boxes of them, stacked up in my garage from these companies sending me these things to promote. And he was like, I'm out. And she was like, I understand that you may be sent all these items, but you're not our target demographic. And it was really interesting because it was like this moment where it clicked for him, where he was like, oh, I'm just someone who gets paid to do these things. I don't even agree with what I'm promoting. I don't even know what I'm selling. And then she's like, we're not trying to go after influencers like you, or you're not even in our target demographic. Like, we have a really specific audience of people that are struggling with this specific thing, and we just want to go after them. Like, the micro influencers in that space that help people with that thing are the ones who are going to sell that thing, not a Stephen Bartlett or someone who
Yep.
has, boxes of similar items stacked up in their garage because of just free promo and press.
Yeah. It's such a good point, and I think sometimes, like, especially, like, we talk to entrepreneurs who wanna get into the digital space, wanna be selling digital products. I think sometimes w w they look at the big names, right? Brendan Burchard or all of these people, Alex Hormozy, and they see this huge following, and they think the only way I can make a lot of money is to have 1,000,000 followers. And there's a reality that you can have a powerful impact with 3,000. Like, you really can, and it's about being that targeted and being that niche and connecting. We look at, our inbound leads for clients, we just have public profiles. People direct message us. We're not mega influencers, but we're making money off our brand presence, and I think that's something that people stop because they think, well, I don't have 10, 20, 50,000 followers yet. I only have 3,000. I'm never going to make any money. That's just simply like not true, that you can connect with and help and make money with a small audience if it's targeted. If you look at like Sarah, who is doing a really specific thing and provides recommendations for like a particular kind of person who relates to that and finds it valuable, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And I find it funny that, we see a lot of these people with the massive audiences, and they are not the people who outperform people with really specific
Yeah.
audiences. The other thing is too, everybody wants like virality and fame. Me personally, like, I wanted that when I first started because I thought that was essential. If you told me tomorrow, like, yeah, this, whatever account that you're creating right now is going to get to 1,000,000 followers, I would not want that type of virality and fame for something that's really broad. Like, I think the dream is, and I did this with, the drone industry, is like, get really specific on one, like, really small group of people that half my friends didn't even know existed, and that's totally fine. And then provide something really valuable to them, and really immerse yourself in that community, or that, micro industry, or that niche, whatever it is. And if you're in front of the right people and they think similar to you, and they act similar to you, and they do similar to you, those people are the people who are like-minded, who see things at the same level. And if you say, hey, I solved the problem, if it's your own product, or I am using, this is what I use, I believe in this thing, people are going to attract to that way more than someone in a broad industry being sent multiple different things to promote, and not get the same results. So yeah, with Sarah, for instance, she only promotes things that she uses, and she was using that thing before, that brand deal or whatever. And the only reason she's doing a brand deal about it or, a promotion about it is because she reached out to them and said, "Hey, I love your product so much, and I would just love to promote it and be rewarded for that because I already do it."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that that's, really the micro influencers and the people that are passionate about small audiences are going to be the most successful moving forward. And, I think that people at one point wanted this fame, but at the same time, social media is changing as well. And short form content is going to be so saturated by AI and all of these things that are going to hit your feed where you're not going to know if it's real or if it's fake or if, you know, a person created this or if this influencer did this thing. You're going to actually look for more genuine content moving forward. And as we've kind of predicted and see this shift now, we're shifting completely to YouTube because YouTube is one of the only search engines that has the same exposure as these social media platforms that also only promotes or the content that the platform was built for is long form authentic content. And that's how people digest, content, and will digest content moving forward. The podcast, as an example, listening, hearing authentic conversations, YouTube, watching, hearing authentic conversations, and it's a search engine, so it's value driven as well. And I think people are going to really enjoy discussions and enjoy authentic content in a way moving forward where, the saturation in your feed right now isn't going to have the same value.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not gonna connect as much there, and YouTube has always had this added benefit of helping, like, your Google search SEO. And right now, if you've been in a business who has relied on SEO, with AI and with all the AI previews, it is getting harder and harder and harder to rank on the first page of Google. But if you have a top YouTube video in that category, you can get on that first page of Google. So there's so many benefits to being on YouTube, to have deep conversation, deep value. It's searchable, which is why we're going all in on YouTube in 2026. And if that's like a journey that really, really interests you, if you're listening, you can join our free 10-day course creator challenge. And we're going to be talking about these topics right in there over the next couple of months and really helping people figure out how to create their first digital product and turn that into sales via YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I love it. I'm really excited about that. And the goal of this with YouTube is just help more people scale beyond their one-to-one work. And that's how we started this conversation, which is awesome
Yeah.
because in the end, that's what, people moving forward, they want to be authentic. They want to share their value with others and they want to help more people just online. And so it's going to be a really fun community that we're building. And I think that we're going to do it in an authentic way using YouTube, for example, that's going to help a lot of people. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today and filling in for Michelle while she's out on vacation. It was a little weird doing this with somebody else, but it was really, really good. I didn't mention this earlier, but I think I told you this. You are the first male guest we've ever had on the show.
Well, thank you for trusting me. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Click Tease. If you found it helpful, please share it with a friend and make sure you're subscribed so you get a notification when we put out another episode next week. See you next time.